Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and welcome to this press conference for the film Neaw Visits His Neighbours by Rirkrit Tiravanija. We are very glad, actually, to have as our distinguished guest the director of the film, Rirkrit Tiravanija. Okay, thank you so much. Some of you might already know the name of Rirkrit as a quite important and respected artist. And this is his first feature film for cinema. And obviously, the question that comes to our mind when an artist ventures into a different field from the ones that made his fame, we question and wonder why did he intend to make this step. So my obvious question to you is the same that everybody probably asked you before.
Well, I think I've always been quite interested in the notion of time and how one spends that particular time in a situation. So, of course, with a lot of my work, it's about people spending time together or doing things together. And I think what I was interested in this structure was really to kind of like somehow deal with that relationship through a man, you know, who goes through his life and in a particular frame, in a way. So that was kind of one of the elements I'm interested in. I actually always thought that a lot of my work was like about film, even though I never turned on the camera, at whatever I was doing. But I always thought that in many ways it was relating to the idea of a kind of notion of time, you know, that one is acting within. So it seemed quite normal for me.
So, already a question? Yes, please.
Sorry, can you say your relationship with the other uncle, Uncle Bomi? Because I saw in the thanks the name of Apichapong Veresetakul.
We all live in the same town. Now, Apichatpong is a younger artist that I know for a long time since he was in school in Chicago. So, you know, and it's a small country, we all kind of work and drink and eat together. And of course, he's quite influential in terms of film, you know, I mean, and actually, I think partly he helped us in terms of, you know, getting some things, people to help us to do things, even though we are only like 3 people. The sound man who appears in the second part of the film, or the first part of the film, worked on his other films. So, you know, we got the sound man through him in a way. So it's a kind of like, you know, relationship like we have with other artists. We talk and we think, and then, you know, when I need to work on film, he would be somebody I would call to find out where I could get the things I need to do that, you know.
But what about the real uncle in the film? I mean, Neaw, how did you get to know him? Why did you actually use this interface to create a film that talks about time through the life of a man? And I mean, why this man specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I met him when I was building my house in Chiang Mai, which is like the main city right near where he lives. And he was a part of the group of people who came to do the construction. So in the off season, when the farmers aren't planting rice or aren't growing things, or if they don't have, you know, a field to work on all the time, they find like part-time job, like an outside job. And actually in this part of the country, or this particular province, a lot of people are like crafts people. They do crafts, and then they are also farmers. So they have like a second skill, and And so he came as part of this crew, and he was a little older from everyone, so he was given like the lighter task. You know, he was like making sure everything was organized and taking care of garbage, or, you know, and helping carrying things. But so he was like, you know, around, and I was just watching him. I saw him, and I was just like, had an interest in him, and I think if you watch the film, you can see, you know, the way he moves, the way he, I mean, his person, or the kind of aura of the person somehow is quite interesting, you know. So that's like the first initial start.
But then for the film itself, I mean, what is really striking there is that it's very difficult to, you know, really define the line between what is real, what is documentary, and what is somehow fiction, because when the character addresses the issue of the presence of the camera, the presence of you as a director, he seems to take it as being the star of a film. So in his own ways, this character is very aware of your presence there. So how did you cope with this complicated relationship of your main character with your presence there, with your camera?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I mean, most of the time he is doing and being as if we're not there. I mean, most of the time you see that, and then every once in a while he looks at somebody next to us, and then he smiles and laughs at them or whatever. And you know, so it's kind of like a strange edge that we kind of go, and it was more like, I mean, we just followed him and we just moved around him, and so there is a certain amount of like completely, and it's almost like more like a phenomenal thing that happens, like things happen in front of the camera. But of course he's aware, and a lot, I mean, everyone is aware that the camera's there, but on the other hand, they don't really address the camera. I mean, they do, but they don't. It's a very strange thing, yeah.
And you decided to include those moments. So
yeah.
In your choices of editing, you actually count that as a part of your discourse on cinema in the film.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's, well, I mean, I would say that I didn't, you know, when I made the film, it wasn't going to be any one of those particular categories, so it could be whatever it is. And I think the moments that happen that I find relevant are like kind of, you know, the relationship that occurs, and then at one point you realize, well, there is a camera, and that guy is, you know, paying him to be, you know, in the film or whatever.
In terms of the material you worked on, for how long have you been following him? How many hours of material did you have to edit out to make this 2 hours plus film?
I mean, you know, we shot a total of probably maybe like 10 days at the most, and we probably had, you know, about, I don't know, how many hours of footage? 9 hours of footage. So, you know, I grew up making Super 8 films, so I shoot and edit in the camera. I don't waste film, you know. And we took out some certain things where we realized wasn't necessary and didn't have to be there. And that's, for me, it's kind of interesting to do that, because it's that's when the fiction starts to me, you know, like when you take things out. So, but everything that you see is in sequence. They're not, I mean, you know, I mean, in the kind of bigger parts, they're not like cut up and replace and move forward or backward with each other. Most of them are all in the sequence.
But for example, when you have the characters conversing among them, at some point there is a cut. Is it really that the moment when the conversation ended, or there is a deliberate choice of stopping the conversation? I mean, because this is also related to the choice of telling reality and fashioning into something that is in time.
Yeah, it's usually the roll runs out, you know, and yeah, so I mean, you can see some things start to go in circle. They start to talk a little bit in circle, but I'm not even standing there when they're talking. So I don't even know what happens in a way. But yeah, basically, I pretty much let things run through. I don't kind of try to edit certain things out.
Whenever you talk about this film, you present this character, Neaw, as a sort of living Buddha. Now, this is my rephrasing of the concept, basically, because you say that this guy has found heaven on earth. Why would you want to change? Why would you want to desire something more, which is basically nirvana somehow? So, do you really think that this character is representative of this kind of philosophical or religious acceptance of life?
Well, actually, what I was saying was more provocative in a way, because it's a kind of question of choice. It's not as if, like, he's complete and everything is great. I don't think that's the situation. But I think at the same time, we have a lot of other situations around us that dictates how we live and how we think and what we do and the time we spend, And I think out of necessity, in a way, he has his own way and his relationship to nature, and I think that's kind of important. I mean, in general, like how we even exist in whatever part of society, So I think it was more kind of provocation to say that if you're in this kind of place, why would you want more? I mean, of course, you could always have a better life, but what is that,
Yeah, sì. Prego, Maria.
Good morning, and thank you for the film. Compliments, thank you for the film. Just one question. Many filmmakers we meet here or at the films here often say that after finishing the film and showing it and seeing it themselves finished on a screen, they realize what they have maybe learned out of the filmmaking process and out of the film itself. Are you at this point already? Is it too early? And if you have gained something more, can you comment on it?
I mean, the film comes in kind of two season in a way, and it's actually reversed in terms of the actual footage when we shot it. So we shot the dry season first, and then we shot the rainy season, and I had planned to make a film in the rainy season, but because I'm not a filmmaker, I needed to, and also because it's a relationship with a man, I wanted to see how it would work. So we went and did a test in this dry season, and as you can see, a lot of it is in the film. I mean, it actually became the film, and I think in that process I learned a lot, which then made the whole film in a way. So there are things that consciously becomes like, let's try to catch this or get the detail, when in a way you could shoot it without those things, So there's certain things, and then when you start to think like that, you realize, it's no longer, it's becoming fiction. And I think maybe that's the biggest thing I've learned is that, there is nothing as real as everybody was, as real as all the conversations are, and, it's all fiction in the end, And I think that's what kind of my sense of it is. And I'm actually comfortable with it. I'm a structuralist film person, I like to watch things that goes on for 8 hours and nothing moves, But on the other hand, I feel like that doesn't make it any more real,
Other questions from the audience? Okay. Another little provocation, it's not exactly in the director's statement, but when the synopsis of the film is presented in the catalog, there is a clear remark about the situation of Thailand, the political uproar in the last few years, and the fact that this film is not about that this film is presenting us someone who is seemingly untouched by this. Can can you comment on this choice as well? Because sometimes films are not only about what we actually see in the films, but also what we don't see.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that it's like, you know, everybody is trying to think about like what is, in a way, you know, the identity or the place or the, you know, the whole political situation, and everybody's fighting and nobody's really listening. And I mean, I think everyone forgot really what the point of all that is, in a way, you know. And I feel that to see Neaw go through his daily structure is a part of that point. I mean, a big part of that point. And you know, a lot of the, I mean, we just had an election, somebody, you know, a new prime minister, and as much as they address like people who are on the margin, it's not real. It's not really addressed. It is, it's a kind of usage rather than, you know, a real kind of need or a real understanding of what that other life is. You know, it's the otherness out there. And I think that a lot of us don't really understand that, and don't understand why we need to, you know, change certain things, because there is otherness out there, and we have to embrace that in a way. So you know, that's the kind of, I hope the film would put things into a kind of perspective that way.
Well, we have time for one last question. If there isn't a question from the audience, I will ask this, which connects also with this point. Because at some point, Neaw makes another remark regarding the fact that he's being filmed. He's saying, oh, this guy with the white shirt is the director, we're going to show this film abroad. But my question is about Thailand instead, because as you clearly made a point about the existence of this otherness, which is usually untold in Thai films, if not in relation, you know, in the usual dichotomy between urban and rural. I was wondering, yes, this film is showing here in Venice, but what about the possibility of showing it in Thailand, and what kind of outlets do you see for this possibility?
Well, I mean, it's a pretty rough film to sit through 2.5 hours, so I think that having the film be, you know, curated into Venice already has given it a chance, in a way, to be seen in Thailand. Because funny enough, like, you know, where we are, we always, you know, we always take what the others acknowledge before we acknowledge ourselves, which is a problem, you know. I'm, you know, as an artist, I don't have to work within that kind of system. So I could just, you know, I'm going to take the film back and I'm going to show it in the street, in the middle of the village, to all the people who are in it. And I could do that in many places. So you know, I don't need to be in a structure. I mean, you know, as an artist, I can work with what I need and know what I need to do to get it to work, you know. So, but it certainly has given it attention, and I think already we had a press conference in Bangkok, so people are very excited and interested, and they haven't seen the film, you know. So, I think that it would certainly be at least more visible than had it not been here, actually. Thank you.
Well, thanks to you. And thanks everybody for staying for this press conference. Unfortunately, our time ran out. So if you have other questions, Rirkrit is here, and maybe you can address him some question privately. Thank you so much.
Thank you.